Now on Indianapolis This Week, the presidential primary on the road to Indiana. We go one-on-one with the man chosen to lead Donald Trump's campaign in the Hoosier State. Is the Republican Party in trouble? Does a contested convention mean chaos? The head of the Indiana GOP is here to answer those questions. Plus, the state's tough new restrictions on abortion, the law drawing national attention now heading to a federal courtroom.
From RTV6, Indianapolis This Week.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Indianapolis This Week. We are now just 23 days away from the Indiana primary, and we start by talking about the race for the White House coming in a very big way to the Hoosier State. The candidates have all started setting up shop here in Indiana, opening offices and announcing their campaign leaders. That includes Donald Trump. His campaign announced that former state Republican chairman and candidate for governor Rex Early will serve as its chairman. We're joined this morning by Rex Early, the state campaign chairman for Donald Trump. Rex, thanks so much for being here. Good to see you again. First off, easy one. Why Donald Trump?
Well, I think Donald Trump is much like our other great presidents. He's tough. He's a conservative, and I'm a conservative. I just like the way he handles himself, and he don't take a lot from the other people. And I just turned into a Trump man.
Donald Trump has called for John Kasich to get out of the race, saying that he's stealing his votes at that point. Do you think that Kasich needs to get out of the race right now?
Well, I don't understand why Kasich's here, because he can't make up on delegates, that's for sure. So that means there's going to be some kind of a moogie-foogie down in the at the convention, and we've been assured by our national chairman that the candidate is going to come out of those three people, and I can't see it coming out of Kasich, especially if he's going to do it on delegate count. He's not there. He can't get there.
Let's talk about the potential of that contested convention. What might happen if they try to pull that nomination away from Donald Trump? If he doesn't have the 1,237 delegates at that point, but he has the majority, what do you think happens then?
I think we're going to have a hell of a fight. You know, Indiana believes in fair. Whether it's in athletics or kids growing up, you teach them to be fair, and that's not fair. I think that the person with the most votes should be the winner. That's the way they do in football and baseball and basketball and other sports. So I just don't see that this can happen without wrecking our party.
You and the Trump campaign are going to have a very busy few weeks now leading up to the May 3rd primary here in Indiana. What do you do now to get Donald Trump's message out there?
Well, we're expecting the A-team to come in, Trump's A-team or whatever they're called. We're getting a lot of phone calls of people want to come in and help Trump. And so we'll work together and find out what they want. What do we got till May the 3rd?
Right.
So we're a little behind starting, but as I said, we'll catch up.
We know that Donald Trump has plans to come to Indiana. No specifics on that yet. What does he have to do to win the Hoosier State?
I think Trump is very, very. Everybody likes Trump in Indiana. Southern Indiana, I was talking to some people from Southern Indiana. As a matter of fact, it was a Democrat. As a matter of fact, it was a Democrat former Speaker of the House, and he told me that Southern Indiana is really Trump country, that everybody likes Trump in Southern Indiana. And part of that is the coal industries down there and so on and so forth. And Evansville has lost some companies. But I think that Trump's message is going to carry, whether it's in Southern Indiana or Northern Indiana or here in the mid part of the state.
When we get to November, is Donald Trump the next president of the United States?
I think that he is going to be the next president of the United States, and I think he's going to win by a big number. I think he's a winner if we can get him through this maze that we've been talking about.
All right, Rex Early, thanks so much for being here this morning. Good to see you.
Thank you.
The other major story developing late this week, Planned Parenthood and the ACLU taking the state to court over Indiana's new abortion restrictions. The law signed last month by Governor Pence prohibits abortions based on the gender of the child or based on a diagnosis of a disability. Our Katie Hines is with Planned Parenthood CEO Betty Cochran.
Why is this action necessary?
The action's necessary first and foremost because it has become one of the most alarming and outrageous anti-choice pieces of legislation filed in the country's history. And it is blatantly unconstitutional on its face and seeks to, for all practical purposes, intrude in the sacred doctor-patient relationship on matters that are of very personal and private concern.
What happens if the effort to block the implementation and enforcement of this law doesn't happen?
That's a fine question, and I wish anybody out there knew the answer. There's a lot of language included in House Enrolled Act 1337, and we don't really know anybody who knows exactly what it says. We have pretty good sense of what its intentions are, but the law of unintended consequences is a real concern here.
Indiana Right to Life released a statement saying that this is, quote, the same song and dance that they have seen from abortion providers in the past, claiming that you're just worried about your bottom line. How do you respond to that?
We're here to make sure that women and men and their families are able to access every health care service that they need. And what I wish the Right to Life would acknowledge is how Roe v. Wade came to be in the first place, which was because doctors were so alarmed by the damage they were seeing done to women who were so desperate to end their pregnancies that they took paths that were, in some cases, caused them to die and certainly caused them to suffer health consequences for the rest of their lives.
What do you do in the meantime as this goes through the court process?
Well, we hope that before July 1, when the date of the law is effective, that we would have an injunction in place, and that would stay in place as this plays out through the judicial review process.
Our thanks to Katie Hines there. Our team also caught up with Governor Pence, who says he believes the courts will uphold those new restrictions.
I have every confidence in the constitutionality of this law. This is comprehensive pro-life legislation that expands the information that expectant mothers receive and also provides additional protections for the unborn.
Still to come here, Donald Trump lost Wisconsin. Does that mean chaos for the Republican Party at the convention? And what about the Indiana primary? The state's GOP chairman joins us next. You're watching Indianapolis This Week only on RTV6.
I'm Erica.
Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week. Less than a month to go now to Indiana's primary, and we are also now less than 100 days to the Republican National Convention in Cleveland. We have heard all the talk nationally about how the presidential primary is a sign of deep trouble for Republicans. Today, for the first time, we are sitting down with the man in charge of Indiana's Republican Party. We're joined this morning by Jeff Cardwell, the Indiana Republican Party chair. Jeff, thanks so much for being here this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
We're getting down to what we call the old nitty-gritty right now, and for the first time in 40 years, Indiana matters in the Republican presidential primary. What does it mean to the state party?
Well, it really means a great deal. Our phones are ringing off the hook. The enthusiasm is there. We're seeing people getting involved in the party that's never been involved in the party before. I think one of the best things that we see from this is a lot of our college Republicans, our young Republicans, are really energized, and we're very grateful for that.
As we have seen this presidential primary process play out across the country, a lot of people have kind of referred to it as a party in chaos right now. Is that your view of it on the national level?
Oh, not at all. It's a very exciting time. You know, in my background, I'm a retailer. Competition is great. It sharpens our skills. It makes us better. And I see this as an opportunity. You know, we had 17 candidates starting out. We're down to 3. And it's a highly competitive race. And we're very blessed to have 3 great candidates. So I think it's very exciting.
So the Republican Party is better off because of this campaign right now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it brings more people. I mean, everywhere you go, when you're going to have a cup of coffee, out to eat somewhere, everybody's talking about.
Yes, they are.
they're talking about campaign. I mean, you know, we just finished up with March Madness and the basketball, but right now, since the very beginning of last fall, elections have been at the top of mind for Hoosiers and been the top of mind for people all across the country.
With Ted Cruz winning in Wisconsin, it appears more likely than ever that the Republican Party's headed for a contested convention. How do you want to see that play out when we get to Cleveland?
I think it's very exciting what's happening right now, and I think it's just good for the process. I know it's a time of history in the making. I mean, you know, the last time you hear a lot of people talking about 1976, so I think it's something that's healthy, having that good competition, and I think when it's all said and done, we will all be stronger, we'll be better, and we'll be, everyone who comes out of that convention will be ready to lead.
And there's no shortage of hypotheticals about who could come out of that convention right now and possibly win the nomination. Could you potentially support a nominee who hasn't gone through the process to this point?
We will support the nominee. We've said that all along. No matter who that nominee is, we will support that nominee. And right now, we have made it very clear. We've reached out. Last fall, I reached out to all 17 candidates at that particular time, trying to gain a little bit of traction to get some of that money spent in Indiana. And I continue to do that. Now we're down to 3 candidates. We've reached out to all 3 of those campaigns and invited them to our office to come into Indiana. And we look forward to all of the candidates coming across the state of Indiana for Hoosiers have the opportunity to get to know them personally.
Back here on the state level now, it's been almost a year since Governor Pence signed the Religious Freedom Act into law. Do you believe that RFRA has caused any lasting damage to the state?
Well, I can tell you, I'm very encouraged over the last year. Just recently, CNBC ranks Indiana as the #1 business environment across the country. We have a lot of great news across our state. Recently, Visit Indiana announced that they had record nights reserved and sold for hotels, people visiting Indiana, over 900,000 in 2015 alone. We have 100,000 net new jobs here in Indiana. So if it's damaged Indiana in any way, I'm sure I don't see that in the facts. I mean, we have businesses locating here. We have the governor has just done an outstanding job leading our nation, or leading our state with investments in infrastructure and economic development and creating jobs.
You have meetings scheduled now to discuss the party's platform going forward. Should that platform address RFRA, religious freedom, civil rights protections for the LGBT community, and same-sex marriage?
It should address all those subjects, and it should address energy, infrastructure, investment into the future of our state economy. All of those issues are very, very important, and that's why we're hosting those meetings. It's so that we can give the public the opportunity to come in and engage in developing our policy. We want to know what's important to them.
Governor Pence appears to be locked into what appears to be a relatively tight election process going forward up until November. What's it going to take for him to beat John Gregg?
Well, I think Governor Pence will continue to run on his record. I mean, he's got a very strong record, a record tax relief for the state of Indiana. Today, you have 100,000 net new jobs here in Indiana since he's taken office. We have more people working today in Indiana than ever before in our 200-year history. He's done a phenomenal job in economic development and growth and investment in our state. And I think as people step back and take a look at that, I think they'll rehire him for the position, and I think he's done a superb job in leading Indiana to the future.
Jeff Cardwell, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming in. Good to see you here this morning.
Thank you very much.
And still to come, trouble in the Democratic presidential primary as the race turns nasty. We're going to talk about both races with our political insiders next. You're watching Indianapolis This Week on RTV6. Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week as we welcome in our political insiders, Adam Kirsch for the Democrats, of course, and Abdul Hakim Shabazz for the Republicans. And let's start with the Democrats.
Or the people with common sense.
Yes, exactly. Let's start with the Democrats because we focus so much on the Republicans during the show so far. Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, they'd kind of gone after each other, calling each other not qualified to be president. They dialed it back on Friday. What are we going to see from them going forward?
Well, that's not exactly what happened. Bernie came out and said that Hillary Clinton called him unqualified and then said, go check the transcript, and we did, and he didn't, or she didn't. I think this campaign's getting to the point where Bernie has to fundamentally alter the narrative to win, so he's going to go after Secretary Clinton in ways he hasn't. Whether or not she responds in kind, we'll yet to see.
Does that impact their race going forward at all?
Well, when you kind of get up there with Bernie, you know, after a while you kind of lose track of what's going on, and so maybe checking the transcript might actually be a good thing before you tell people to check the transcript. I mean, regardless of what you think about, you know, Hillary in her position, I mean, she was a former First Lady, U.S. Senator, Secretary of State, so to say that she's not qualified is, you know, kind of ridiculous, and once again, it shows almost sort of a desperation by the Sanders campaign, like Adam said, that they don't have the math, you know, to get there. Now, the good news is for Bernie is that Hillary is still, trust is still a big issue, you know, for a lot of people. That is going to be her biggest concern. You know, will the American people trust her enough to make her president?
Does he stay in until the convention?
I don't know if he stays into the convention. Actually, I was talking to somebody last night who's done the math, and Indiana, if she wins Indiana, that can actually be the state that puts her over the delegate number needed to be the presumptive nominee. I think it's very hard for him to stay in once she gets to that number.
We'll see what happens with the Democrats. On the Republican side, Trump's Indiana chairman Rex Early on the show earlier said that everybody loves Donald Trump. The AP, though, in poll out Friday, 70% of people have an unfavorable impression of him right now, including about half of the Republicans. What does that mean, not just for the presidential race, but for races here in Indiana when we get to May 3rd? If he's still ahead at that point, Republicans have an unfavorable view of him. What does that mean for John Gregg going forward, for these state races going forward? Abdul?
Well, to be interesting is, see, there was a poll taken back in December about the Republican race by Christine Matthews, Republican pollster. Trump was leading the pack with about 25%. Now, granted, Marco Rubio, Jeb Bush, a lot of those guys were, Dr. Ben Carson were still in there. So it'll be interesting to see how it will look today. I know Public Opinion Strategy is supposed to be doing another poll in Indiana coming out maybe like a week or two. So that'll give us a really good idea as to where this race sits with the three of them. But I expect Donald Trump to do very well in places like Lake County and down in coal country where he does extremely well. You know, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz do well like the second and the third, more that socially conservative part, and John Kasich do well, you know, in the fifth and in the seventh. So we could literally walk away here on the Republican side with no more clear front runner than we did when they, you know, before we started.
Does it benefit the Republicans at all to get to that 1237 for Donald Trump or Ted Cruz if he can pull it off before you get to the convention, before everything could potentially implode for the party?
You mean if they can avoid a pie fight?
Right.
Yeah, of course it does. Now, the question I think Republicans are faced with are, do they rip the party at the seams on national convention, or do they nominate Donald Trump? I mean, that's really the fight they have. I don't see anybody coming up the middle and being not one of these three people. So it's either going to be Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, or John Kasich. And John Kasich can't get there.
And it won't be Paul Ryan.
It won't be Paul Ryan.
What does this all do to the Republican Party going forward, regardless of what happens at the convention? Where does the Republican Party go from here, Abdul?
This is basically the culmination of what has been going on since 1964. The old fights between the Barry Goldwater wing of the Republican Party and the Nelson Rockefeller more business wing of the Republican Party. It finally comes to a head, you know, 50-something odd years later, and there's only going to be one person left standing. And if it is Donald Trump or Ted Cruz, the Republican Party, as we know it, is now dead and over, and they're going to have to start all over again.
On the presidential race, on the presidential,
this is what happens when you're practical about this stuff.
You have so many Republicans that say they support Donald Trump but not Ted Cruz, vice versa. They support Ted Cruz but not Donald Trump. How does that impact the race for governor here in Indiana when we get there, if a lot of people stay home?
Well, we actually saw Mike Pence campaigning with Rafael Cruz, Ted Cruz's father, this week, and the state Republicans gave their space to Donald Trump. So I think clearly there's going to be some movement there.
Okay, real quick.
I knew Abdul was going to jump in.
First of all, the governor was not campaigning with Rafael Cruz. They were at the same event up in Kosciuszko County where 1,000 Republicans show up. So that's like saying that, you know, there are two people in the same place are automatically campaigning for each other, which they were not. And Republicans give the space to all presidential candidates. If Hillary comes here, if Bernie can find his way, if he can remember where Indiana is, because he can't remember what people said about him, you know, in a transcript, I'm sure the Democratic Party would be more than happy to give him space over there downtown.
Let's leave age out of this. You can let Adam and Abdul know what you think right now, because they will surely let you know what they think. Post your thoughts on our Indy This Week Twitter page. You are watching Indianapolis This Week, only on RTV6. Welcome back. In the Sunday Spotlight, former Colts player Gary Brackett. The Super Bowl champ is not only focused on his restaurant business, but also impacting the lives of Indiana youth. He spoke with our Rafael Sanchez.
To be a leader, essentially, is not about saying the message, right? A lot of people think leadership's about, saying the right message at the right time. For me, more importantly, it's about being the message. And I want people to look at me and look at my life as a shining example of what's possible, right? Against any tragedy, any odds, what can you make of yourself? And I think, time and time again, I had my back against the wall and I came out fighting. And it's just a mentality that, you're going to succeed no matter what. There's a need out there for people to be prepared to enter into the workforce. So we made some new initiatives, Impact Ready, where we're going to go out and have some seminars from 15 and 24-year-olds. We have a few already set up with the YMCA, with the Urban League, also with the Indiana Black Expo, and really just talk to our young people about what it means to enter into the workforce, what it means to be on time, what type of things that you should be on your resume, what it means when you go to an interview, how should you be prepared.
And Gary's Impact Foundation is hosting a gala on April 16th at the downtown Georgia Reese's restaurant to benefit its youth and family programs. Thank you so much for joining us here on Indianapolis This Week. For Rafael Sanchez, Katie Hines, and our entire team here, have a fantastic